I'm Joe Reinigle, Sports Director of KENS 5 Television, and you're watching Inside Brush Country Sports. Make an appointment. Don't ever miss it.
Welcome to this episode of Inside Brush Country Sports, brought to you by South Texas Orthopedics. I'm your host, Chris Filateo, Sports Editor for the Pleasanton Express. A month into the season, and two area teams continue to rise as the Eagles remain undefeated at 4-0, along with the 3-1 Jourdanton Indians. Last week's games were hampered by torrential downpour, with Jourdanton's contest being called at halftime due to heavy rain. The Indians are on a 3-game winning streak after handling the previously undefeated Carrizo Spring Wildcats. Pleasanton soared in the second half as it trailed with the Pirates at 14 apiece at halftime. However, the Eagles exploded in the second half, along with a steady downpour to defeat Lytle 35-14. The Indians hosted a 3-0 Carrizo Spring Wildcats, but controlled the entire game as they led 30-0 at the half. After a 30-minute lightning delay, both coaches agreed on calling the game after the half. In Poteet, the Aggies hosted county foe Charlotte for their homecoming game. The Aggies sprinted out the gates and picked up their first win at 1-3 overall, with the Trojans, who fell to 1-3 after the loss. In this episode, we have Pleasanton statman Ted DeVilbiss stopping by to talk about the Pleasanton Eagles. Then, we will cover the area volleyball teams with the arrival of district competition. And we sit down with every coach to break down this week's opponents. I'm joined with my friend Ted. How you doing today, bud?
All right.
Good deal. Well, you know, you're being the new stat man this year. How are you liking it so far?
It's great. I mean, the new challenge for me to learn how to do the stat for the team and help them out, and that great.
Nice. Well, you know, you were doing the stats when I started here in the spring for the softball team. Now it translates into the football season. How much more difficult is it? It's
very difficult. Football is a lot faster than softball. I mean, it's very harder.
Well, let's go and talk about the Pleasanton Eagles this year. You know, how do you think they're compared to last year's team up to this point?
Last year's team was a passing team. We had a passing quarterback. This year's team is a running team with Revelo and Jackson running the ball, and I think they'll be very focused and stay focused every week, and they'll be ready for the district challenge coming up this week.
Yeah, definitely. You know, Lavernia here coming up here shortly. They're going to be a pretty tough opponent. You know, Lavernia's played some pretty difficult teams, and Pleasanton's played some pretty tough teams too as well. But that'll definitely be the true test.
Yeah, that will be the first true test for us for this year.
Well, great. Thank you so much for your time, Ted. Well, let's now go in and talk about Carrizo Springs as the Eagles prepare for Friday night.
The Eagles look to keep their win streak alive on the road this week, traveling to Carrizo Springs to take on the Wildcats at 7:30. Last year, Pleasanton shut out the Wildcats 47-0. The Eagles are coming off a 35-14 win over Lytle, in which the defense shut out the Pirates for 3 quarters. Pleasanton will need to cut down on the penalties after totaling 10 for 93 yards against the Pirates. The Wildcats are coming off a 30-0 shutout by Jourdanton, their first loss of the season.
Here at Pleasanton High School with head coach Tab Dumont. How are you doing today, Coach?
Doing good, Chris.
Great. Well, you know, let's go in and evaluate Carrizo Springs as a 3-1 team. How do you do that?
I tell you, we're going to have our hands full down there in Carrizo Springs. I think they've got a really good football team. They've got a stable of running backs. They've got big offensive line and defensive line. So we're going to have to do a good job of running to the ball and getting people there and tackling well.
And they do like to spend a lot of the game running the ball. I was there 2 weeks ago when they hosted Poteet. What scares you the most about the running attack?
Really what scares me is their running backs. Like I said earlier, they've got a stable of them. They got the district MVP of their district coming back, and Rios, I believe is his name. He hasn't played in the last 2 games against Poteet or Jourdanton, so we really don't know if he's going to be there or not. If he is there, we're going to have to really be ready. And like I said, they've got more than just him. They've got a stable of running backs that are really good.
Now, do you think this long road trip takes any effect on the players going up into the kickoff on Friday?
I don't know. It's kind of exciting. We're doing some things a little bit different. Going to get out of school a little bit earlier, have a good pregame meal down there, and have a good meal on the way back. So it's exciting for the kids. It's a time for them to build a little team bonding and spend some more time together.
Great. Well, good luck on Friday's kickoff, Coach.
Thank you.
We move on to Jourdanton homecoming game against San Antonio Brooks Academy Friday. Afterward, Indians head coach Wayne Johnson lets us know how you approach this game before district kicks off.
Jourdanton's game against Carrizo Springs was cut short due to a lightning delay, but 2 quarters was all the Indians really needed, posting a 30-0 shutout of the Wild. This week, the Indians kick off district play and host San Antonio Brooks Academy for their homecoming game at 7:30. Last year, the Indians shut out the Tigers 56-0.
Here at Jourdanton High School with head coach Wayne Johnson. How are you doing today, Coach?
Good, Chris. How are you?
Great. I'm great, thank you. Well, you started your first 3 games on the road. How good does it feel knowing you're going to play your second game at home this week?
Well, it's a good feeling. Anytime you're traveling like we were to start off the year, it gets kind of weary towards the end of it. But we came out well, in those games, 2-1. So it was good for us to be able to win on the road like that. So, being home though is good. It's always good to have home cooking, so to speak.
Now you've won your last 3 games in a row. How do you look to continue that streak going into Brooks Academy Friday night?
Well, Brooks is our first district opponent, and everybody's starting from ground zero. So, you've got to be ready to play whoever the opponent is, and being the first district game, I know our kids will be ready to get after it.
Well, let's talk about district, Coach. You have 7 teams in your district, with Luling and Marion later in the schedule. How important is your early district schedule?
Well, we just take them one at a time. That's a cliche, but you have to. If you look too far ahead, somebody's going to bite you. So we definitely take them one at a time, and we don't look ahead. We don't even look at film on other people until we get to the next week. So it's one of those things where I've always felt like if you look down the road too much, you're going to find trouble.
Well, good luck on Friday's kickoff, Coach.
Thank you.
Now we analyze Pearsall as the Aggies look to win in back-to-back games. After that, I sat down with Poteet head coach Hank Willis to talk about Pearsall at home this week.
Fresh off their 50-6 homecoming win over Charlotte, the Aggies host Pearsall this Friday at 7:30. The Mavericks are 0-4 on the season, coming off a 7-25 loss to San Antonio Kennedy last week, in which they had 4 fumbles and only managed 115 total yards. Against county foe Charlotte, the Aggies rushed for 307 yards while passing for 153 more. Last year, Poteet beat Charlotte 13-6.
Here at Poteet High School with head coach Hank Willis. How are you doing today, Coach?
Doing great. Great.
Well, you'll have Pearsall coming up on Friday. How do they line up offensively?
They're doing a little bit more spread than what they've done before in the past. I know Coach Silva likes to try to throw it around and run a little bit, but then they'll do that, then they'll get back and they'll try to run the ball in between the tackles, so they do a little bit of everything over there.
A lot of inside running then.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Now, what's their defensive formation?
Defensively, it's a little bit of the same. Sometimes they're in a 4-man front. You get inside the red zone. They like to get in a 5-man front, bring cover 0, bring a lot of pressure. So they do a little bit of everything.
Okay. Now, what will you take from last week's win going into Friday?
Well, again, with my guys and my coaching staff, all we're trying to do is get a little bit better every week so we can be prepared for district when district gets here. A lot of people don't realize this, but we're in a pretty dang tough district. So it's going to be week by week, and we just want to make sure that we're prepared from top to bottom, and then that we can put our best foot forward and find a way to get in the playoffs.
Now, let's go in and talk about Derek Santos and his performance last week. Absolutely extraordinary running abilities on his part. What do you have to say about him?
He's. I'm glad he's on my side. He's a great kid, an outstanding student, and a good young man and a great athlete. And he's kind of turned into the leader for our ball club. And he does a lot of things on the field, as you know, of course, but he does a lot of things off the field to help out his teammates. And we also got a sophomore quarterback back there, so it's good to have him in the backfield with him to keep his nerves down, keep his calm, cool, and collective.
Sounds great, Coach. Good luck on Friday's kickoff. Next, the Charlotte Trojans return home to face Ben Bolt. Finally, Charlotte head coach Jerry Dominguez tells me how the Trojans will prepare for Friday's kickoff.
The Trojans look to rebound from their loss at Poteet against Ben Bolt this Friday at 7:30. The Badgers are 2-2, coming off a 20-47 loss to Pettis. Against Poteet, the Trojans managed 257 yards, but lost 3 of their 5 fumbles. Last year, Ben Bolt defeated Charlotte 38-7.
Chris Filateo here at Charlotte High School with head coach Jerry Dominguez. How are you doing today, Coach?
Doing good.
Well, let's talk a little bit about Ben Bolt, Coach. How do they line up offensively?
They're multiple eye team. They're going to run the football. They've got a decent quarterback. They're not the Ben Bolt of old. I will do say they beat them by 10 points. Last year they drubbed them by like 28. Benavides, I watched the video against Benavides, and Benavides is probably going to be last place in our district. And Didn't give them a run. The final score was probably worse than what it looks like on film. 39-14. They got beat by Pettis 47-20. So we're just talking to our kids, saying, this ain't the old Ben boat. It's time to go out there and compete against them, because the last couple of years it hasn't been pretty against them. So
now, what's their defensive formation?
They're going to be multiple. They're going to be 4-3. They're going to be 50. They got two big O tackles, that are pretty strong, pretty quick. They're real physical on defense. You catch the ball over the middle, they're going to drill you. But other than that, like I said, just multiple fronts on the defensive line.
Now, after losing the last 3 games, Coach, how do you look to fire up the kids going into Friday's kickoff?
We just got to keep doing what we're doing. One thing that we try to sell our kids on is, just stay the course. You got to stay the course. You can't quit. You can't give up. You just got to continue to harp on the little things. Do little things. It's been a tough week in practice. So I'm gonna be honest with you. We're pushing our kids, and see who's going to stick and who's not going to stick. Because in the long run, I want to be here for a few years. And the one thing that I don't want to be known as is not that we've won in the last couple of years anyway, but win at all costs. So in other words, I want to have a good, sound, disciplined program where we're all rowing in the right direction. Because I've been in a couple of programs where it's kind of like, we'll overlook discipline issues to have it on the team, and whenever stuff gets bad, it gets really bad because the discipline just comes to the forefront. So what I want to do here is build a sound foundation, discipline-wise, and that's what we're doing. And the one thing I also told them is, we're not even in district yet. Last year in district we were 2-2, and I think we're way better than we were last year. So when Bruni's down a little bit, LaPryor, they've gotten a little bit better, but it's going to be a battle through district, and my goal and the kids' goals is, win the district title, and I think it's there for us to get.
Good. Well, it is early in the season, we're barely a month in, so there's plenty of time to work out the kinks. Now, talking about up to going into 4 games this season, where do you think you're stronger, on the offensive side or defensive side?
I'm going to say it's a little bit of both, okay? But there's mixed results. The first game, obviously, we came out with a bang, scored 45 points, gave up 12, so everything worked well there. The last 2 games, D'Hanis and Oasis Canyon, I'd say it was 50-50. Offensively, we drove the ball. We just shot ourselves in the foot with turnovers. Defensively, we did well between the 20s. We just, when it was, we couldn't get off the field on the set 3rd and 18 or 3rd and 15. So just little things that we could have fixed there. Last game, it was just a culmination of everything. Turnovers, couldn't stop the run. Kids came out flat. It was a big game. Hats off to Poteet. They did a great job. That little running back's pretty special. Fast. But, we just got to move on from there, But like I said, I think it's even 50-50. There's been flashes on both sides of the ball, if I had to say.
Great. Well, good luck on Friday, Coach. Sure.
Now let's talk about the area volleyball scene. The Lady Eagles have won 9 matches in a row as they gear up for their District 28 3A opener and sports a 15-8 overall mark going into district action this week. Jourdanton has started its District 29 2A schedule on a bright note. The Squaws are 3-1 in district so far with an 11-9 overall mark. Pleasanton will travel to Poteet for the first district match of the season October 8th. In Charlotte, the 3-13 Trojanettes open District 29 1A competition against San Antonio Gervin Friday night. In the same district, McMullen County is sitting at 500 with a 10-10 record as the Cowgirls gear up for San Antonio Stacy this week. Charlotte and McMullen County doesn't meet on the court until October 11th, both of the teams' last match of the first part of the district schedule.
Don't forget to follow us on Twitter for the latest scores of your favorite area teams at PE1909. Join the conversation at #MyBCSports. Well, that's it for this week's episode of Inside Brush Country Sports. I'd like to thank Joe Reinagel and a man that can only go by one name, Ted. We also want to extend our gratitude to South Texas Orthopedics. Signing off, I'm Chris Filateo. Head out there and enjoy your Friday Night Lights.